The cool air feels crisp, and as Christopher steps outside into the cold morning air, it awakens his every pore. He inhales deeply and makes his way into his car and then to work. The Canary Button Company watches as he approaches. The darkness within shifts and welcomes him with a warm smile. Standing not far past the gate, Mary greets him as he enters the plant. "Good morning, stranger." She smiles and approaches him. Her jacket, unzipped, flows back to her sides as she moves as if she were Superman and it was a cape. Looking up, his eyes met hers and he smiles. "Well, good morning there, Mary." He extends his hand only for it to be bypassed as he is embraced by her. She whispers, "I think we both know that we know each other better than to just shake hands." Her warm breath against his neck. The embrace now complete, Mary laughs slightly and motions towards the employee entrance of the building, and they step inside together. Stopping at the stairs heading up to the offices and the lobby that leads back and into the plant, Mary leans in and places a soft kiss on his lips. "I'll see you later. I might have some work in the office if you want to stop by. Say around 11. Mary runs her hand down the opening of his jacket and pulls on it slightly. "Sound like a plan?" she questions. Christopher nods as he rolls his wedding ring upon his finger unnoticed. 11, he replies. Mary smiles, her red lipstick calling out to him as she does so. "Good. See you then." Mary turns and heads up the stairs with little more than a backward glance. Christopher sighs watching her leave and stands motionless for a moment before heading into the plant to begin his day of work, his mind reeling as he questions his actions. Just before stepping out of the lobby, he pauses and turns towards a closet door that sits ajar. "Hello?" He looks into the darkness and the darkness looks back into him. He turns and enters the plant, the motion within the darkness unnoticed by him as he does so. The day unfolded like many other days before it. Work orders and menial tasks that bored him, but that had to be done for the plant to maintain production. The electrical systems in the plant were old and no longer adequate for the things they were being used for. Keeping the place running was a full-time job every day. Finishing a work order, Christopher looks at the clock in the opening of the east wing. 10:40 a.m. He thinks of Mary and the morning's events and walks down into the basement of the building to gather things for his next work order. It was cool in the basement. He paused at a workbench and looked over the items he had found and contemplated the jobs that he had left to do before leaving work for the day. He closed his eyes for a moment and thought to himself, his mind clouded and tired after a night of sleeplessness. "Well, don't fall asleep standing up now, Chris." Mary's voice came from behind him. Turning towards the sound, she greets him in an embrace and passionately kisses him before continuing. "I saw you walk down the stairs near the east wing. Figured I'd see what you were doing down here today." She smiled and looked around. "Nobody down here with you?" she asks mockingly. "No, just me. Not too many people come down here. It's usually just me, except for on Mondays. We have a meeting down here in the old planning room on Mondays." Christopher looked her over and then scanned their surroundings. "I thought you wanted me to meet you in your office at 11. Without replying, Mary leans in and kisses him again. She pulled at his shirt playfully as the kiss is broken. "So where is this planning room?" Her brow raised, she looked around, then pulled him into the direction of the room. Christopher stumbles behind her as he is led by his shirt towards and then into the planning room. Mary closes the door behind them as they enter. "How did you know where the planning room was?" Christopher asked. Mary smiles at him. "There are some things you cannot know." Mary pushes Christopher towards the table and then back onto the table. "What are you doing?" Christopher asks and laughs awkwardly. "Whatever you want me to," she replies, her hand running up his thighs to his belt buckle. Her eyes never leave his as she unbuckles his belt with a smile. Christopher's head begins to spin and a seemingly mechanical pulse shudders through the plant. He tries to sit up, only to be pushed back down towards the table as Mary climbs on top of him. "I know about her." She pauses as she takes down her hair. "Don't worry, I don't mind," she says as she leans over him. Her words echo in his head and he loses consciousness. Awakened by the coolness of the meeting table, Christopher sits up, quickly realizing where he is and the fact that he is completely naked. Mary sits in the chair at the end of the table. The single light on in the room wraps her in shadows as if she were wearing war paint. "What happened?" Christopher asks as he quickly gathers his clothes. Mary stands and walks over to him. The darkness of the room blocks out her face as she approaches. Now quickly getting dressed, Mary grabs Christopher by his crotch and pushes him again against the table. "What you wanted," Mary replies and rubs her hand against him. "Get dressed. I'll be expecting you tomorrow afternoon in my office. You choose what time." Mary leans in and kisses him passionately, then turns and walks from the room, closing the door as she exits. The world seemed to echo as she walked away as Christopher quickly got dressed. His head was foggy and he felt drunk. The day would go on without incident, and before he knew it, he found himself on his way home. Standing in the hallway just in front of his door, he pauses and thinks about the day's events. His fingers roll his wedding ring as he stares at the door's peephole. He can hear Clarissa inside, singing something faintly as she often does. He inhales, taking a deep breath, and opens the door. Entering the living room, he is greeted by a dancing Clarissa, dressed in underwear and a tank top, singing as she cleans the house. She turns and jumps as she realizes she's no longer alone in the room. With a smile, she dances her way to him, singing the song loudly and filling the room. She grabs him by the shirt and dances around him, then pulls him into a small kiss before breaking it and dancing her way back to the radio that is sitting on a bookshelf. Turning it off, she turns back to Christopher. "Hey honey, how was work?" Christopher's mind raced and he stood quietly for a moment, steadying his thoughts. "It was uneventful," he smiled nervously as Clarissa looked him over slowly. "You have something on you." Clarissa approaches him, looking at his shirt. His mind races and he thinks of the lipstick that Mary had been wearing this morning. How could he have not thought of checking himself before coming home? Clarissa rubbed at the collar of his shirt and wiped at it with her fingers. "Something red. Looks like lipstick." She smirks and continues. "Did you see that girl again at the plant today?" She laughs slightly. "Are you changing another woman's lights again?" His mind in a whirl, he struggles to reply, managing only to say a few words. "No, I didn't see her today." He rubbed at his collar as well and looked at his fingers, then back to Clarissa, who was smiling at him. She holds up her index finger, its tip smudged with red. "I think it's that grease that you got on your khaki pants back in the spring." She walks towards the table and picks up a towel, wiping it away from her fingertip. "You look tired again today," she says as she does so. "Why are you so uptight?" Running his hand through his hair, he shakes his head. "I think I just need to get a shower. I feel dirty from work." He sits down and removes his boots, then stands up. "Yeah, I'm going to go ahead and take my shower." Christopher walked into the bathroom and closed the door behind him. Within moments, the radio was on again, this time on a lower volume. The faint sounds of Clarissa singing along is drowned out by the water pouring down from the showerhead as he turns it on. Standing in the fluorescent lighting of the bathroom, he slowly gets undressed. Once done, he puts his clothes in a small pile so that after his shower he can put them in the hamper. As he turns to get into the shower, from the corner of his eye, he notices movement. Turning towards the vanity and the mirror, he is greeted not by his own reflection, but that of Mary standing in the darkened planning room, her face blocked by the shadows. Panic grips his mind and he moves away from the mirror and backs towards the door. Mary moves within the mirror as if under a strobe light. Rigid movements appear as she closes the distance, looking to be getting closer to the mirror's surface as she does so. Her head cocks to the left harshly at an angle that she most definitely should not be able to make. Her face remains in the shadow as she stares out through the mirror's surface. A rhythmic mechanical pulse shivers through the world around him, and as it does, Christopher struggles to collect himself. He takes panicked breaths and watches as the shadows on Mary's face seem to fade away as she leans towards the mirror's surface. When they've cleared, his heart stops in fear. Her eyes had been removed. The sockets merely dark blood-soaked holes, and in their place, 2 silver buttons. He screamed out as the buttons fall from Mary's eye sockets and the world around him goes black. Clarissa, who was still singing and dancing as she cleaned the table, suddenly stops and turns towards the bathroom. Hey FearSoMe friends. I'm sorry I've not put out videos of late. My laptop died and I've just been scrambling everything I could find from different PCs and software and everything else. But I'm back on track now, so we can get back to some creepy spooky stories. If you wouldn't mind going over to my Patreon and having a look, it would really help me if you could join and pay just $1 a month for early access to all my videos and MP3 downloads. Thank you everybody for all your support. And remember, keep being creepy.